The night city lights glittered like diamonds scattered across a black velvet sky, but inside the towering glass building of Novatech Industries, one man swept those same lights reflected on the floor. The marble gleamed under his hands, the hands of a man who carried quiet storms behind his eyes. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father, the janitor everyone passed by without noticing. His shoulders were slightly hunched, not from weakness, but from years of carrying the invisible weight of sacrifices no one ever saw. In the same building, 33 floors above him, Clara Jennings, the youngest female CEO in Novatech's history, signed off on another $1 million contract. The media called her a prodigy, investors called her unstoppable, and her employees called her untouchable. But behind that immaculate suit and cold poise was a woman whose life had hardened her heart, a woman who believed every success was earned by blood and sweat, not charity or sympathy. She had no room for weakness. No patience for failure. What neither of them knew that night was that fate was quietly weaving their lives together, in a way that would test everything they believed about kindness, success, and what it truly means to give. Backhand index pointing right before we continue. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good hearts changing the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Corner, to keep these real and emotional stories alive. Yellow Heart. Every morning, Ethan arrived before dawn, long before the executives flooded the lobby. He would mop the marble floors, empty bins full of coffee cups and crumpled papers, and hum softly under his breath, the same lullaby he sang to his daughter, Lila, before she fell asleep. Lila was 7, with hair like sunlight and eyes that always carried more hope than her little world should have known. Ethan never complained, even though his back ached, his hands cracked, and his pay barely covered the rent. But there was one secret about him that no one at Novatech knew. Every month, without fail, he donated half of his paycheck to a small orphanage across town. The children there called him Mr. Ethan the Angel. He'd fix their broken toys, paint their walls, and bring them books he found in donation bins. He'd tell them stories about heroes, not the kind in capes, but the kind who worked quietly in the shadows. He never told anyone why he did it. Maybe it was because he'd been one of those children once, left behind, forgotten. Or maybe it was because kindness was the only wealth he'd ever truly known. Clara, on the other hand, lived in a world of steel and numbers. Her father, a ruthless businessman, had drilled into her that feelings were for the weak. When she became CEO at 30, she vowed to prove to every man who doubted her that she didn't need anyone, not their approval, not their pity, and certainly not their kindness. She believed money fixed everything. Until one morning, something shattered that illusion. It was a rainy Tuesday when Clara arrived at the office early. She was reviewing quarterly losses when she noticed something unusual in the hallway camera feed, a janitor lingering outside the lobby, holding a box of old toys. Curious, she switched the feed and zoomed in. She saw Ethan kneeling down, picking up a small toy truck that had fallen from the box. The way he held it, gently, like it was treasure, caught her off guard. Then she noticed him walking toward the exit, where a small bus waited. A sign on the side read, St. Mary's Orphanage. That afternoon, Clara called the HR department and pulled up Ethan's file. No misconducts, no complaints. Just years of consistent, loyal work. But something didn't add up. His salary wasn't much. If he was supporting a child alone, why was half his paycheck being transferred to a charity every month? The next morning, when Ethan arrived, she called for him. He walked into her office nervously, clutching his cap. The last time he'd been in a CEO's office was when he begged for a job years ago. Clara looked at him, the worn shoes, the calloused hands, the quiet humility. She didn't expect the warmth in his eyes. "Mr. Cole," she said, her voice cold, "I reviewed some financial records. Why are you donating half your paycheck to an orphanage when you have a child to raise?" Ethan didn't flinch. He looked down for a moment, then met her gaze. Because, ma'am, he said softly, those kids don't have anyone. I know what that feels like. I'd rather Lila grow up knowing her dad tried to make life a little better for someone else, even if we don't have much. Clara didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, she felt something she couldn't calculate: admiration, guilt, maybe even shame. The man who mopped her floors gave more to the world than she ever had, despite having so little. Days passed, but Clara couldn't get Ethan out of her mind. His words echoed in board meetings, in elevator rides, even in her penthouse apartment that felt emptier than ever. One evening, she found herself driving to St. Mary's Orphanage. The building was small and cracked with age, but when she stepped inside, laughter filled the air. Children ran around with paper crowns and plastic toys. And there he was, Ethan, repairing a bookshelf while a little boy hugged his leg. Clara watched as he smiled, patient and gentle, as if the world had never been cruel to him. Something broke inside her that day. She realized she'd spent years building walls around her heart, mistaking power for peace. She donated money to charities every tax season, but she'd never felt kindness the way Ethan lived it. It wasn't about numbers, it was about presence. The next week, she made a decision that would change both their lives. Clara called an emergency staff meeting. Everyone expected another strict memo or corporate lecture, but instead, she announced a new initiative, Project Hope, a company-sponsored fund to support local orphanages, single-parent programs, and employee welfare. Every department would participate, starting with leadership. But what no one knew was that Clara made Ethan the face of it. She invited him on stage that day, in front of the entire company. He stood there, confused, in his janitor's uniform, as she handed him a certificate of recognition and said, her voice trembling slightly, "Sometimes, the most powerful leaders aren't found in corner offices. They're found in the quiet hearts of those who give without expecting anything in return." There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Ethan's daughter, Lila, sat in the front row, beaming with pride. And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. The walls of hierarchy, wealth, and power crumbled. Everyone saw not a janitor or a CEO, but two souls who'd found a way to heal each other through compassion. Over the months that followed, Project Hope grew beyond anyone's expectations. Novatech funded renovations for the orphanage, built scholarships for underprivileged kids, and started family support programs. Ethan was promoted to facilities supervisor, though he never stopped sweeping the floors himself. "Keeps me grounded," he'd say with a smile. Clara often visited the orphanage with him and Lila. The children began calling her Aunt Clara, and for the first time in years, she felt like she belonged somewhere that didn't require a title. The woman who once believed kindness was weakness discovered it was the greatest strength of all. And the man who thought no one noticed him learned that quiet goodness could change the world, one act at a time. When winter came, Novatech's annual charity gala honored Ethan with a plaque that read, "For reminding us that success means nothing without heart." Clara presented it herself, her voice breaking as she said, "You've shown us what leadership truly looks like." Ethan smiled, tears glistening in his eyes, and simply replied, "Kindness doesn't need a title, ma'am. It just needs a heart." The audience stood in silence, the kind that holds both awe and gratitude. And in that moment, everyone understood, greatness isn't measured by what we earn, but by what we give. Yellow Heart, if this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner, because in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. Sparkle's special request to comment below. Would you rather have a life full of money, or a heart full of kindness? Tell us your thoughts, your story might inspire someone today.